If I've learned anything from studying psychology, it's that people are captivated by it. We all want to understand why people do what they do. We want to be able to explain the conduct of our friends, family, lovers, co-workers, and even strangers. In fact, we try to explain human behavior without realizing it. Have you ever tried to study the conduct of the man your friend is dating? Or perhaps you spotted someone sprinting in public and assumed he must be fleeing the police. Perhaps your colleague is acting strangely, and you suspect they're hiding something from me. Humans are meaning-making animals. While psychologists try to understand and explain behavior, they also want to know how humans try to comprehend and explain behavior. This technique is known as attribution. There are numerous ways in which people rationalize their actions, as well as the mistakes they make along the road. It could be just as informative as the underlying reasons for the conduct. So I'd like to explain briefly about something called attribution theory. Fritz Heider, a Gestalt psychologist, introduced attribution to psychology in the early 20th century. Although he did not go into great detail on the attribution process, he did describe two distinct forms of attribution that are still widely studied in attribution theory today: dispositional and situational attribution. Dispositional attribution, also known as internal attribution, occurs when you assume a person's action is motivated by internal reasons. For example, a person may cry on the subway because they are emotionally unstable, or they cry frequently. In either case, it is related to the individual's internal elements. Second, we have situational attribution, also known as external attribution, which occurs when you assume a person's behavior is influenced by external factors. Maybe you see the same person crying on the same metro, but you presume it's because of something outside of their control. Perhaps they witnessed something horrible, or they were just broken up with by the person sitting next to them on the subway. Either technique could provide the correct answer, but attribution focuses on how people arrive at these judgments. According to ideas on actor-observer bias, we are more prone to utilize internal or external attribution depending on whether we are performing the activity or viewing it. Next, I'd want to discuss something called correspondent inference theory. Some attribution theories focus solely on dispositional attribution. Consider Jones and Davis's correspondent inference theory. Jones and Davis argue that humans are more inclined to employ internal attribution in certain scenarios. If someone acts freely and consciously, we are more likely to connect their actions to their personality. We explain that it is simply the type of person they are. Other characteristics that may prompt us to create internal attributions include if the conduct is uncommon, directed at a specific individual, or has the potential to directly damage or aid another person. So suppose you're strolling down the street and hear someone bothering you. It's not normal behavior, and it's geared at you. It checks off two of these items from the list. You believe that street harassment is done to provoke a negative reaction from individuals. You are more prone to relate the harasser's behavior to their personality rather than some external stimulus. In summary, this theory helps you comprehend whether a person is doing something because of who they are or because of the circumstances surrounding them. Next, I'd like to discuss Kelly's covariation model, because attribution theory extends beyond the correspondent inference theory. Harold Kelly developed a model that is now considered one of the most well-known attribution theories. Kelly's covariation model argues that three elements influence whether we utilize internal or external attribution. So imagine you're at a dinner party and your friend orders a really expensive champagne on a night out with your other buddies. You may be wondering if this is because they prefer the finer things in life, or if external influences in their current situation are inspiring them. Kelly provides three particular factors that you can utilize to determine the answer. The first one is consensus. So consensus refers to how everyone else behaves in the same situation. You may look at what everyone else is ordering. If everyone at the table orders pricey cocktails and caviar, there indicates a high level of unanimity. However, if everyone sticks to inexpensive appetizers and alcohol, unanimity is unlikely. Second, we have individuality. Here's how your friend behaves in similar situations. Assume your friend consistently orders the fanciest item on the menu or purchases the most expensive clothes at the mall. If they do, the distinctiveness is modest. However, if they like to conserve money, shop at thrift stores, or eat at less expensive places, their individuality is high. We're simply stating that your friend's purchase of a really pricey bottle of champagne is distinctive. Third, we have consistency. And this is how your friend always behaves in this case. Maybe your friend likes to buy costly champagne when you're out with this particular friend group or at this precise restaurant. If so, there is a high level of consistency. However, if this is the first time your friend has opted to purchase really expensive beverages for your buddies, we would conclude that consistency is lacking. If you notice that your friend's behavior falls on the low end of the range on all three of these, you're more likely to ascribe it to your friend's personality. You respond, that's simply who they are. They're just a showy person who appreciates the finest things in life. However, if your friend's behavior is on the extreme end of the range, you are more likely to blame it on outside influences. Perhaps your friend feels they made a negative impression when they first met those buddies and wants to make amends. Perhaps they received a raise, or they were disappointed by some terrible news, and they simply want to make the evening special. Of course, we cannot always apply this approach to strangers. As with anything in psychology, if a stranger orders really costly champagne, you can't just look at their entire shopping history or who they're with. In this scenario, Kelly proposes that they consider previous experiences and assign necessary and sufficient explanations to the person's action. People do it all the time. You might believe that a stranger's nice outfit means he's a high roller. Again, these attributions and our understanding of attribution theory do not necessarily reflect the underlying motivations driving a person's conduct. But as I wrap off this video, I'd like to point out that if we can grasp theories of attribution, we may be able to better understand how individuals assess others and refine the way we assign causes and develop beliefs and judgments about specific behaviors. So, as a review, we discussed the history of attribution theory. I mentioned the correspondent inference theory and Kelly's covariation model, which are both big words for explaining how humans understand the behaviors of other individuals. I hope you learned anything about attribution theory from this video. If you have any questions, please leave a comment below or check out the other videos in my social psychology series. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.